This is the Talk Dairy Issues, and you're with me, Memory Banda. Today, we'll be discussing a permanent issue that actually is devastating and that has affected women's and girls' rights. And we'll be talking about issues of gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is not just an issue of getting justice, but further to that, it's also an issue attached to development activities in the country. When we are talking about development activities, it means everyone is actively involved. And if gender-based violence is continually happening against women and girls, it means that almost half of the population is left behind and they can't really participate actively. And just for your own records, Malawi ranks 145 out of 188 countries in the world, meaning that Malawi is one of the countries where gender-based violence is rampant. And we can't just leave those figures like that. There is something that you and me, we can do. And today I'm joined by Dr. Mary Shawa, who is the former principal secretary for the Ministry of Gender. And she has done a lot of work. She is phenomenal, and she is the woman of all times. And currently she is working directly with Plan International as a gender expert. And also I'm joined by Faith Mapemba, who is an activist, and she is also a fighter for girls and women's rights, and she works with Girls Empowerment Network, one of the national organizations in Malawi. I welcome you guys to today's discussion. Malawi is actually a party to Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, and it actually prohibits any form of violence. And at the same time, Malawi has several policies and frameworks to protect women and girls from violence. And Malawi constitutes about 51% of women, and actually within the 51%, about 5 million are girls below the age of 18. These are huge numbers. So the question is, what is the government doing to protect this big population of women and girls? And we'll get that information from our guest today. And I'll start with you, Dr. Mary Shawa. What mechanism have been put in place, having worked at, in the government for a long time to combat violence? Is the structure enough?
Thank you very much. Maybe we begin by saying, to begin with, people thought violence is part of life. It's a norm. So that when things were happening and somebody tried to report, they always said Zambanja. Okay? But when studies were done, they revealed that it's no longer Zambanja. It's a national problem. 3 things were done. The first study indicated the cost of violence in terms of economic cost. And it was noted that for all cases of violence, if they are not addressed, you are losing $19 per case. So if the cases are many, then the cost is much bigger.
Yeah.
The next one was that we looked at violence at all levels, and concentration, a study done in 2013, whose report came out in 2016, revealed that over 50% of our children have experienced a form of violence. And multiple violence, 1 in every 3 boys have had multiple violence. On sexual violence, 1 in every 2 girls have experienced sexual violence. So when you look at those figures, they are really very high figures. Yeah. And indeed, it is a cause for concern. So out of those studies and other work, government developed, first of all, a strategy on combating gender-based violence. Secondly, within the laws, the Gender Equality Act has provisions on elimination of gender-based violence. Then when you look at the domestic violence, it also addresses, it's an act also. Yeah. It's completely addressing violence within the domestic arena. Because violence happens in several places. In the domestic arena, in the public arena, at school, within the home, and there are many places.
Workplaces.
Yes, so because of that, so the domestic violence was developed to address the domestic arena because it's where the majority of violence takes place. In addition to that one, there has been a review of the Constitution, especially the section that was talking about the marriage, consent on marriage before the age, before the age of 16. So that was reviewed, and I must mention that Plan did very good job, a very good job, because
and I was
it
actually
mobilized,
one of the young people working
who
on the
came
project.
to my office to say you must make sure we change. So I said, okay, I'll take it up. I will make sure we change. And indeed, by 2017 February, we had the section repealed and we had the act endorsed.
Yeah. I call it a Valentine's gift.
It is, because it was February.
Yeah.
But where the concern on my part is that there are so many pieces of legislation, there are so many policies. Because, for example, the registration on Child Care Protection and Justice Act also provides for protection of violence against children. So there are all these pieces of registration. Unfortunately, the pieces of registration have not been harmonized to provide a guide for magistrates and courts who are dealing with cases of violence to give a judgment which is uniform throughout the country. So you find somebody will go in with a child marriage, some magistrate will acquit that marriage, that case, saying, oh, the Constitution provides for that. Maybe because they have not been given information on what the new act states, because it says 18 years and plus. You go in another case where defilement has taken place, or even rape, they'll say, it's in marriage, forget it. It was a consent because it's a relationship, forget it. But what we should know is that, now I will track a little bit, a lot of boys are being raped.
True.
And our laws do not provide for rape against boys. So it's another area which is almost silent. And we really need to do something about this. Because somebody will argue, no, a man cannot be raped. It's women who can be raped. So these are real problems.
Exactly.
And the problem is, such type of a man, when he marries, he will be an abuse. Because as far as he is concerned, he went through it, so somebody else must go through it.
And
it's
they
a
think
norm.
it's normal.
Yes, it's a norm. So in general terms, yes, government has done some work, but we really need to do more. One, we have to look at the provisions, harmonize the acts, work which has already been started, and the plan is in the forefront to make sure we harmonize. And we need Parliament, when they are sitting next, to look at the harmonized version. Ministry of Justice has done its drafting, and we need to present it to Parliament and let Parliament pass it. So that we have guidelines in terms of how judgments can be done. Access to services is another challenge. When I've been victimized or somebody has abused me, I have to go to court, to go to police. Police will tell me go to the hospital. Hospital will tell me go to the police.
There is a back and forth.
Yes, that type of movement alone creates a problem. The best was the creation of the one-support centers, one-stop centers, which they did. Unfortunately, most of them are not operational. Maybe because they lack manpower, maybe because they lack resources, maybe because we don't have adequately trained human resource to manage the one-stop centers. And then there are shortages of medical personnel within the one-stop center, shortages of the prosecutors within the one-stop center. So these are problems that are there, and something needs to be done. Remember, we are talking of close to 50% being abused. Because you talk of 49, 50. It's a 50% of the population. They have had abuse in one way or another. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done. Absolutely. And people believe the abuse is part of life.
It has never.
It has never been.
Yeah, it has never. So maybe, Faith, you can take it up from further to that. Dr. Mary Shaw has really given us a package of everything. And I don't know, maybe you can explain further. Maybe looking at now at the responsiveness. Now let's take it down to the local level, at community level. How is it like?
Well, thank you so much. Before I talk about the responsive measures that are there for GBV survivors at community level, I just also want to make mention that for me, I feel it's best for us as a country to first focus on preventing this GBV altogether.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I feel if we prevent it, we will not be struggling with the issue of responding to it.
True.
So coming back to what Dr. Mary Shaw was saying, yes, we have beautiful laws.
Yeah.
We have the National Plan of Action in combating GBV. We have the Child Care Protection and Justice Act.
Yeah.
We have the Malawi Constitution, which is so strong on issues of GBV. And all this stems from the Beijing Platform of Action,
Yeah.
where Malawi committed to say we are going to deal with GBV in Malawi. But having these laws and policies does not really translate into the actual action happening. There's a gaps, there's a dislink somewhere where you're finding that while having this, all these legal policies, the laws, enforcement of the implementation of the same is not there.
Yeah.
She mentioned the issue of having like the service providers, the police, the registrators, who might not be aware of all the laws that are there. But now come to think of a person from the villages.
Yeah.
She mentioned that about 50% of we have about 50% of women and girls who have undergone violence.
Yeah.
Of this 50%, most of them come from the villages. They come from the communities.
Yes.
True.
They don't have access to TV. They don't have access to radios.
Yeah.
No.
How then are they supposed to know that the laws protect them? That they should know that they have to report when they are abused. So I think somewhere we're missing something.
Yeah.
It's about communicating the laws and the policies to the people who need them. They should understand that this is a human rights issue, and they too, they matter. So I think for me, it would be important for us as a government to prioritize issues of raising awareness around issues of GBV as a human rights issue.
Yeah.
And this needs to start from the young people, the girls
They need
themselves.
to voice out.
They need to understand
Yeah.
these things.
Yes.
What if we include that in our curriculum, for instance? Then a girl will know from standard 1, standard 2, standard 3 that they
if
have
let's
rights.
say if I'm touched like this, it's violence.
Exactly.
If this happened to me, it's violence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then further to that, we can also ensure the resources, the allocation of resources in the right mechanisms, in the right support systems that are around these girls. For instance, if a school is empowered enough and it has resources, they'll be able to report a case that a child has mentioned within the school setting of abuse. And then if also we have like this social welfare services, the child protection workers in the communities and the community victim support units having the right resources, they'll also be able to respond to the issues of abuse that have been reported to them. But sadly, memory, if I'm to mention this, you'd find that in the communities, when a person reports a case to the victim support unit, community victim support unit, they'll be asked if they have transport money for them to take that case to the police station.
Yeah.
And if they don't have money, what happens to that case? So you'd find that the issue of like the culture of silence is also sometimes promoted with such kind of incidences. They go like, oh, if we report, we'll be told to also find some money for us to take the case further.
Yeah.
So if we don't have money, why report it?
And maybe even further to that, not even just taking the case, maybe the case will not even go beyond that. Because by the end of the day, we're like, oh, let me just, I don't have the money, let me just stay. Yeah.
And then also the issue of gender-based violence, it also stems from inequalities, unequal power relations.
Yeah.
We also need to deal with the root causes of this GBV. we need to look at the community gatekeepers.
Yes.
How much information do they know around GBV? Do they understand the issue of the laws of Malawi saying GBV is a crime? Are they aware of where these cases, how these cases can be handled? You'd find that sometimes a rape case would go to the GVH, and you'd go like, no, this is not right. You shouldn't have done this and all that, and then they'll resolve that case within the community, which is not supposed to be like that.
It's not supposed to be like that. It's a straight up a criminal case.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other issue is about providing support to the survivor of gender-based violence.
Yes.
We are so quick to say this is the perpetrator, they need to be arrested, but we tend to forget to provide the right support to the survivor. For instance, counseling services, psychosocial support services to the survivor. You'd find that in a community, in a TA, for instance, you'd find that there will be one child protection worker who is trained by the social welfare services on how to provide counseling. Now, this person is supposed to attend to all the survivors in that community.
That should be exhausting.
How sure are we that the quality of service is going to be good?
And even one person, that's too much work for one person.
Exactly.
For instance,
Exactly. So I think in dealing with the whole gender-based violence thing, we need to look at all the aspects of it, including support for the survivors.
Absolutely. And we have talked about a lot of things, and I would like us to have a short, quick break. And again, if you're watching us, you can actually put the comments on our Facebook page. Go on our Facebook page, interact with us, and give us every information that you think is necessary that links with what we are discussing today. Welcome back. Earlier on, we were discussing on how at community level and even at national level, how holistically as a country we are working to combat gender-based violence and the responsive system that it has been put in place. And right now, I would like us to shed more light about mental health of the victims of gender-based violence. Gender-based violence cannot be ignored, and especially the victims of gender-based violence cannot be ignored, and we'll be looking at their well-being and their mental health. And I'd like to get back to you a little bit. You know how like at we were talking about how at community level the response system is there, but it's not enough. And we also looked at national level that we have the rules, the policies, the framework is there, but there is more that we can actually do. And getting back to that, how do we ensure that the mental health of victims of gender-based violence is checked? How do we support them? We'll start with you, Faith, at community level.
Thank you so much. I earlier on mentioned that the challenge that we have at community level is the availability of psychosocial support providers.
Yes.
Who would be available to the survivors, to have sessions with them, to walk them through the recovery process so that they can later on be able to integrate in the communities again. You'd find that most survivors of gender-based violence are living into a community that still thinks GBV is part of life.
Yes.
True.
So no matter how much these people are going to move from the challenge that the problem that they faced, they'll be reminded by the society that they made a big deal out of a situation that was supposed to be normal. So we also need to deal with the social norms. After dealing with the social norms, ensure that we are creating a supportive environment. The support systems of these victims, who are they? How much do they know about dealing with issues of psychosocial support? And outside that, there are some cases that are very extreme. For instance, cases of like rape, defilement. As a system, we need to have in place safe spaces where we can remove this person from this kind of community, take them to that particular space, talk them through what they experienced.
Yes.
Ensure that they have healed before we place them back in that community. But sadly, as a country, we don't have more of such spaces. You'd find that the few that we have are run by non-government organizations. And they are not available to everyone. So that poses a challenge. As a result, the victims, the survivors of gender-based violence,
Yes.
are left to deal with their issues themselves within the same community setting.
Which is very hard.
Very, very
It is.
difficult.
It is.
We have all seen that some girls who were like survivors of defilement, for instance, who end up going into a child marriage. Because they feel...
And some have even committed suicide.
Exactly.
Yeah.
True.
In most cases, they commit suicide. But some, you find them getting into an early marriage with no clue about what marriage is. And that also continues the cycle. Because while they're there, they'll bear children while early, not be able to support their children, and they might also be exposed to the same kind of violences. And in some instances, you'll find that the girls are married even to the person who inflicted this pain, this abuse on them. So it's really sad.
Yeah, and just taking you through that, and at national level, Dr. Mary Shaw, do we have enough programs? Do we have facilities? Or maybe further to that, what more that as a country we can do to ensure that gender-based violence victims are supported so that they're able to build their resilience, go back to the society and become productive again?
I think to begin with, the Minister of Gender has the center in force here in Rirongwe. There is one center. It houses children, street children. But apart from that, it used to house women who have been victims of gender-based violence. A few of them, when I was there, have been assisted to actually move out of violence, become independent, and be on their own. Suffice to point out that I think as a country, we really need established the safer spaces, as she has pointed out, which can be located maybe one in each district. Why I'm saying this, you find that there was a case in Katabe of a father defiling all his girl children in front of the wife,
That is so
on
traumatizing.
pretense that he is going to get rich. And when the woman started talking, he said, I'm going to kill you. So the ministry came up, took the woman to this center. But as she has rightly said, while she was at that center, she was being assisted. When it came to resettling her, resettlement failed. Up to now, I understand that woman has remained as a victim because the children have continued to become commercial sex workers. And the woman herself is more or less homeless. So when you look at these cases, you find that there is a bigger problem than what we are looking at.
Yes.
Survivors of gender-based violence, they need to be supported with a psychosocial support. Unfortunately, we do not have enough trained people on emotional stress management and the referral pathways from one level to another, and that creates a problem. So once you have done the referral process, you have given them psychosocial support, you need to empower them with economic empowerment programs so that they move from a victim house to become independent. And then this is also affecting the way cases are being managed. Because when a survivor reports, let's say, a defilement case or a rape case or a physical abuse case, at a certain point when the case is about to enter court, they will go back and say, just forgive him, he's my husband. It's because there are no support systems at the household level. And we really need to look at the 6 transformative approaches to gender. Because gender equality cannot be achieved unless you transform the system. So you have to address the norms, which has been already stated. And in order to do that, local leaders have to be in the forefront. Each area or even group village headman should create their own safe space to keep the survivors of gender-based violence and to manage punishment to the perpetrators. Because without that management, we have a problem. The next thing we have to look at male involvement. So that when males are involved, they should put in place mechanisms on how to prevent, manage, and treat survivors of gender-based violence or gender-based violence in general. Then the same should be replicated at the district and national level. Then we also need to look at creating conducive environment where somebody should be able to go and report and they get the results and then act on it. Then the survivor should be part of the decision making. So that is now addressing their agency. So that in terms of my position, I should be able to say, as far as I'm concerned, the village must do this, government must do this, and this is the direction we want to follow. So by so doing, you are addressing the agency of the problem.
So there is a need for a comprehensive approach, and at the same time, it's not just a one-way kind of a thing. So that's really a lot of work that we have to work on ourselves, so that we check our physical health, our emotional, our mental health, and by the end of the day, even our spiritual health is so important. And this is the end of our discussion today. And let me tell you, if you are experiencing any form of violence, speak out. Silence has never solved any problem in anybody's life. So speak out, stand out, and walk tall, because if you speak out, you never know whom you're going to help, because your voice can be able to heal somebody's wound. And we are in this together, and we'll rise out stronger. And know that you are never a victim. You are a survivor, and you are a change maker through your experience. Thank you so much. Until next time, and have a great day.